So this is Autodesk Inventor, which is a 3D CAD program. So we needed a model to put inside of Unity, and a 3D model of the PiCar didn't exist. So this was a pretty rough mock-up that was created. So you can see that we've got the top platform. Doesn't have the spoiler on it, but it's the basic shape and the correct dimensions. We've got the bottom one. The wheels were created kind of from scratch to look roughly like the ones on the vehicle. Same thing with the tires. Now, some of these components were available for download. So for example, this is an IMU we're using called the B&O 055. There was a CAD model for that. This is the 18650 battery. This is the Raspberry Pi 4B. You can see as I click them, they're selecting on the side. This is a servo that controls the ultrasonic sensor, and that was broken out separately. And there's also the camera module. So here you can see where we installed the camera module. And the ultrasonic sensor was actually created as a separate... That was created as a separate assembly, and the reason that was done separately is so that we could animate it inside of Unity, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So this is kind of a rough shape, but this way it's a separate, what we call game object in Unity, and that'll be shown in a separate video, and that way this can be animated inside of Unity. Okay, this video is going to be a quick walkthrough of Unity. So Unity is a general 3D development environment. It's typically used for game development, although it can be used for kind of any kind of 3D visualization environment or even 2D. It allows the binary exported to be either a PC desktop application or Android, iOS, or PS4, Xbox, etc. So it allows a lot of different sort of write once export to a lot of environments. So what we're going to do here is I'll walk through a few basics. So the first thing we needed to be able to have a 3D model of the car. We wanted something that would animate on screen as the physical car moved and we received that data. We needed a way to represent that inside of Unity. So in the previous video, you'll see there was a 3D model was made of the car inside of AutoCAD. Inside of Autodesk Inventor. This was exported out as an OBJ file, and it was imported into Unity. And then so if I click on the car, so when it was imported, we had this PiCar 4, which is all of the different, you can see all the different pieces, every individual mesh for this is all represented in here. So you can see the wheel, and then what you'll notice here on some of these, because when it comes in, there's no colors applied to it. So inside of shader, this is where we actually come in and we can apply different textures, colors, what we call materials to it. So we create a material, and then we can apply that to the individual ones. And this way we can give it a little bit of color. Separately, the ultrasonic sensor is a second object in here that was imported. And this way, you can see, this way we can animate this object separate from the car. So if you see rotation in the upper right here, as I move that, I can put in, for example, let's put in 90. You can see that we can rotate it 90 degrees, 0 degrees, or -90, or some value in between. So what we're going to do is we're going to be subscribing to data from the sensors, importing that into Unity, and then we're going to be able to move the car around with this information. Another one is the IMU data. And what the IMU data is going to do is it's going to allow us to get the rotation of the whole car. So if I click on the full car object, and again I go here, I can rotate the entire car. Again, I'm doing it manually, but this will be done programmatically. So you can see I'm rotating it here. And we're just basically mapping. We get that heading value from the IMU, and then we're going to enter it into here. The other data we're going to get is going to be the encoder data. So this is going to be as the wheels turn, we're going to get that encoder information, and we're going to use that to physically move the entire car. So instead of a rotation, we're going to be able to move the position of it. So let me see which one moves the car. Okay, so Y is up and down. So we're going to be moving it in the X direction and in the Z direction. So right now we're in what's called the scene view. So if I use my scroll wheel, I can scroll in and out. If I hold my right mouse button, I can kind of pan around the scene. If I click and hold my scroll wheel, I can drag the scene around. So this is so we can lay out our objects in the scene. So you can see we have these different objects in here. We have our car. We also have something here which is the plane. So that is simply the 3D, this is just the plane that the car drives on. Game object, 3D objects, and we create a plane. In that plane, you'll see there's an element here, concrete pattern. So concrete pattern is a material that was applied to it, and this allows us to just put a material or a texture, you can see. And there's a number of these that can be downloaded from the Unity Asset Store. Up here, we go to Asset Store, and we can come in here, we can search for different materials. I searched for one called concrete, and then was able to apply that to this surface. There's also lighting in here. You can see there's directional lights. There's the ability to put in cameras. Now, there's another thing in here called a canvas. A canvas is if you want to put a 2D user interface that lays over the 3D environment. So we're in this scene view right now. If I scroll out, this is a bit unintuitive, the way it does the canvas, because this isn't how it looks in the game. But when you want to lay out your canvas, which is where you would put buttons, this is how it's represented. So we create a canvas, so game object, we would say UI, and then we would do canvas. Once we have our canvas, then we would do game object UI, and we would put text, buttons, things along those lines we would drop onto it. And if you see, this is actually a 2D. So if I kind of scroll to the side, you can see how this is a 2D system, or a 2D visualization for the UI. And this overlays on the game. So if we go to game, see how we're in the game view? The game view shows us what the virtual camera is seeing, plus it shows us the UI overlaid on top of it, if the UI is enabled. So we can go to canvas. If I unclick canvas and I go back to this game, the game isn't running right now, but this just shows us in a static view what the game would look like. So again, I could turn on canvas, it turns these on. You can see there's a forward button. Well, if I uncheck forward, that button disappears. So this kind of leads into the UI functionality. So we put this button in here. So we go canvas, or UI, and we say button. We drop this button onto the scene. So now we have a forward button. And this is the text. So if I click this forward that's under forward, this gives me the ability to change the displayed text. So if I put 1, 2, 3 after it, you see it show up right there. I can change the font, the size, etc. of that. But let's go back to the button. Well, what we want is we want the button to actually do something. So we have this down here. I'm going to go ahead and set this up because I think this looks like this might not have been set up for some reason. So what we're going to do is we're going to do on-click, editor and runtime, and we need to tell it, well, what do we want to happen when forward is clicked? I'm going to grab my scripts folder, and I'll explain that one in a minute. We're going to drag it over here to object. So now it's going to look inside of my scripts folder. So we'll just click over to that. This is where I have a bunch of our scripts running. This is C# files. And we're going to, inside of one of these, there is a function call that we want called in order to move the car. I think that's inside of this ROS script. So we're going to go back here. We're going to say function, ROS, and we're going to say move forward. So there is a move forward method. And if someone clicks forward, it's going to call move forward. So same thing, we're going to drag our scripts here. We're going to choose Ross, and we're going to say we want to move backward. We'll just do these other two. We'll do the other ones here while we're at it. Again, left. We're going to take scripts. It's a good idea to just put your scripts inside of this game, one of these empty game objects. You can just do game object create empty. It's kind of like a folder. And in this way, we're not dragging the actual script into here. We're dragging that game object with the scripts embedded into it. Okay, so we're going to do Ross. We're going to say move right. And we're going to go to stop. And move stop. So now we have all these set up. Make sure we save our scene. Save our project. A couple other things that are in here. We have VLC, which is a library for doing streaming video, so that we can import streaming video into it. And what I'm using here is, you can see it's, let's get back to the scene view. So we have this VLC 360 is, actually let me undo that. Actually, I think we're not using that. It's raw image. So what raw image does is, this is actually going to take the image from VLC. It's going to take that image and it's going to display it into this raw image, and I can do a separate video on kind of how that works. And then you can see the other things that are set up inside of this UI. So we've got CPU, GPU voltage. We've got all these other things. Same thing. I can see video toggle. If I press that, it's going to run this thing called toggle video, which is simply going to turn this video on and off. So if I click game, it's going to turn this on and off. So I'm going to go ahead and do a separate video getting into some of the code. So this is just a good first overview of the Unity, the actual Unity environment, how things are placed in the environment, and how we can sort of make changes to them.